This patch will feature a few struggling items receiving buffs. We have a mini rework to Bel'Veth, Mordekaiser is having his 26.14 buff reverted, and much more as we provide you guys with a complete update to the solo queue tier list for every role as we head into 26.15. But first, some hard truths. YouTube is built for the algorithm, not your LP. That means clickbait titles, junk food topics, and stretching simple tips for watch time. We're part of that system too, just like every guide and YouTube channel. And because every video is randomly surfaced to you as a singular guide and topic, advice often contradicts what you just watched. No context, no plan, more confusion. On our website at SkillCapped, however, we're free from all that, allowing us to focus on what actually matters. We teach in the most efficient way to really rank you up fast, with the same premium editing and challenger level coaches you see here, just without the algorithm's hoops. Start with our essentials courses for every role, updated for season 16. These are meticulously planned step-by-step guides that builds your fundamentals in the right order. Once you've finished essentials, move into the advanced courses. Deep dive wave control, advanced mechanics, the proven bronze to diamond climb paths, and literal world record jungle clears for meta junglers, all structured so that lessons stack instead of contradict. While you follow these learning paths, we also release our popular challenger walkthroughs, new sessions every week showing how to abuse the best meta champs for your elo. Supported with an AMA section below each video, which we always respond to. We back it with a climb 5 divisions improvement guarantee while you're actively using SkillCapped, plus a 30-day refund change of mind policy on top of that, so there's literally no risk. Stop trying to mix and match random guides and start following a structured path far away from all the noise. Click the limited time discount link below to join SkillCapped today. So an item that was semi-popular at the very start of season 16 but is not a core purchase on a single champion right now is Bastion Breaker, so Riot's buffing it for 26.15. The cost of the item is going down from 3,200 to 3,000 gold, while the bonus true damage proc is up from 30 to 50. So Bastion Breaker as a second or third item is something that should be worth considering again in 26.15. A few champs that you can look to try it out on include Kha'Zix, Zed, Jace, and Yorick, but really any lethality champion who gets a lead and is looking to close a game out quickly is going to fare well with Bastion in 26.15. Terminus is an item that is only core on a few champions right now, so it's going to receive a buff for 26.15. The item will now have some scaling power added to the on-hit damage with a 10% bonus AD ratio and a 10% AP ratio being tacked on. So a few champs who can look to take advantage of this buff include Kalista, Varus, Kog'Maw, Katarina, Vayne, Kai'Sa, and Bel'Veth. The third item that will be buffed for this patch is Yuntal Wild Arrows, with its cost going down from 3,100 to 3,000 and attack speed is up from 40 to 45%. So Yuntal has been a decent item on a few ADCs lately, but it has been getting overshadowed by alternative options on most ADC. Yuntal is going to be the strong scaling rush item for the crit ADCs, so spots where you can consider running it for this patch is when you're playing with an enchanter support and want that late game insurance, or if you've fallen behind early on and need to play to scale. Sivir, Xayah, Tristana, and Zeri will be the best Yuntal users for 26.15. And then Riot snuck one by us last patch because in the original plans for the patch there were jack of all trades nerfs, but then they decided to scrap them last minute. However, they are back again for 26.15. So the adaptive damage that you get with 5 jack stacks is going down from 10 to 8, while the adaptive damage at 10 stacks drops from 25 to 20. Still a pretty light nerf overall, so we really don't expect for jack of all trades to lose its viability on the champs who have been running it, as there just isn't a better alternative option for the majority of them. So we had moved Mordekaiser up into the top lane OP tier during the 26.14 mid-patch tier list due to how insane his buff landed, and we will be moving him right back down because Riot's reverting the buff. Well, they're reverting the R buff, but also providing a compensation buff, so he will still be stronger than where he was in 26.13. The compensation buff is to Mord's E cooldown, as it's dropping from 18 scaling to 10 seconds to 16 scaling to 8 seconds. So even with the R revert coming through, we still think Mordekaiser should be a good pickup for 26.15. He keeps the E damage buff from last patch and also gets the E cooldown buff this patch, so relative to 26.13, he is in a much better spot. So we're only going to be dropping Mordekaiser down one tier, going from OP into S. Riven is going to be directly nerfed and then also indirectly nerfed due to the jack of all trades changes, so she's going to be losing a fair chunk of power for 26.15. The direct nerf is to her R, as the AD bonus you get when using the spell is dropping from 25 to 20%, while the R2 minimum damage bonus AD ratio drops from 60 to 55%. So not killing blow nerfs by any means, but enough to where we do think Riven will be a more average top lane pick moving forward, so she's being dropped from A into B tier. So having a look at the top lane tier list, with Mordekaiser dropping out of the OP tier, we are shifting Malphite and Kayle back up, as they will remain two of the more reliable top lane champs for solo queue. Irelia had been holding on to an S tier spot by a string in recent patches, so with the jack of all trades nerf coming through, it will impact her slightly, so we're going to bump her down to A. Volibear is buffed for this patch, with his Q cooldown dropping by 2 seconds at rank 1 in the spell, so this is actually quite nice for top lane Volibear since he maxes his Q out second. If the buff tacks on at least 1% win rate, then we see Volley being back in a pretty good spot for this patch, so we're going to move move him out of the B tier and into A. None of the item changes should really impact top lane in a significant manner for 26.15, as it's only the Jack of all trades nerf that will have a minor impact on a few champs. Riven, Irelia, and Fiora are the most common Jack of all trades top laners, so they all get slightly weaker. So jungle is where we are going to see the meat of the changes for 26.15, and first up we've got the Bel'Veth mini rework. A ton of base stats are being shifted around, so we'll put them all up on screen here so you can have a look. Level 1 attack speed ratio, and base AD are all being lowered, so you're losing some early game power. Base armor is going down and base health is being reduced, so Bel'Veth is losing quite a bit of strength early on due to these base stat changes. Passive is being changed so that instead of receiving 20 scaling to 40% attack speed for your next 2 attacks, you will receive a flat 20% attack speed for 3 seconds. Passive attack speed per stack is adjusted, going from 0.28 scaling to 1.1% to 0.1 scaling to 2%. Q missile speed is going from 800 scaling to 1000 to 850 flat. The between cast cooldown of Q is up from 1 second flat to 4 scaling to 1 second. This is a huge nerf to the early game skirmish power of Bel'Veth. 1 up to 4 seconds just seems like a monstrous nerf. Damage on Q is up though from 0 scaling to 20 to 12 scaling to 20, with the AD ratio being increased by 5%. There's a few other minor changes as well, with monster damage being adjusted, minion damage amp being removed, and attack speed to ability haste conversion going down. W is altered so that the base damage is up, however the bonus AD ratio is being completely removed. Slow is being changed from a 1.25 scaling to 2.25 second 50% slow to a 2 second flat 30% slow. W knockup duration is adjusted from 0.75 seconds flat to 0.6 scaling to 1 second. E damage is going up, however the missing health damage is significantly lower. Missing health damage drops from 300% down to 100%. Number of strikes from E is down from 1 per 33% attack speed to 1 per 40% attack speed. Damage reduction is nerfed early but buffed later on. Lifesteal from E is going up from 20% flat to 20 scaling to 40%. Lifesteal scalar is being completely removed though. E cooldown is heavily nerfed, going from 20 scaling to 16 seconds to 24 scaling to 12 seconds. Monster damage is up on E from 150 to 200%. And then it looks like R is where a lot of the power of Bel'Veth is being shifted into. R passive on hit damage now applies every attack instead of every other attack. R passive is no longer removed when swapping targets. R passive applications on Q and E no longer require Bel'Veth to have attacked the target first. Passive true damage is going down from 6 scaling to 14 with a 12% bonus AD ratio to 2 scaling to 6 with a 3% bonus AD ratio. Explosion damage missing health ratio is down from 25 to 20%. R heal and bonus health base values and scaling values are up. Auto attack range bonus is changed from 75 flat to 25 scaling to 125. Size from R is up from 10% flat to 10 scaling to 20%. And then unempowered and empowered buff duration will now be infinite when you reach 80 stacks. So what we can take away from these changes is that Bel'Veth is much weaker early on, is way more reliant on her R, and should scale like a monster into the late game. This kind of completely changes the identity of Bel'Veth, because she has previously been known for being one of the best early to mid game skirmishers, so these adjustments are going to shift how you play her a ton. The big change we think will be felt the most is the fact that Q cooldown is up from 1 second to 4 seconds early on. This is going to take some time to get used to and will make the early skirmisher Bel'Veth way weaker. It's looking like getting your lavender stacks and scaling up will be the name of the game with Bel'Veth now. Buff duration on R being infinite at 80 stacks is where you're really going to turn into a raid boss. It's just a matter of whether or not getting to that point will be difficult or not, because if Bel'Veth's early game is significantly weaker like we think it will be, then she may just be a more low elo skewed pick instead of high elo. In the past, Bel'Veth has always been a high elo machine, but it's looking like that may not be the case anymore. As for Bel'Veth's tier list placement, it's impossible to tell until we see her on live servers as to how much power she gains or loses, so we won't be shifting her tier list placement for now, and we'll have an accurate update for you guys in the updated tier list next week. Riot's trying to bring Maokai back into the jungle for 26.15, as his Q damage to monsters will be increased by 10 at each rank in the spell. Q AP ratio is up as well, so this is going to help out the Liandry's rush on Maokai, as it has been his most popular rush item when played in the jungle. So we don't think he's going to be an insanely strong pick by any means, but an average B tier champ is where we can realistically see him slotting in. The second jungler who will receive buffs for this patch is Volibear, with his Q cooldown being lowered from 14 scaling to 10 seconds to 12 scaling to 10 seconds. So a bit of a boost to the early game skirmish of Volibear, but you max your Q out first on Volley, so once you get to level 9, it doesn't even end up being a buff anymore. As a result, we can't see this one leading to a significant boost in power for the bear, so he's going to remain placed in the A tier. Zac will be issued 2 direct buffs as his armor growth is being increased from 4.7 to 5.2, while E cooldown drops from 22 scaling to 10 seconds to 21 scaling to 9 seconds. So buffs that help the scaling strength of Zac, and with any sort of base stat buffs, they always provide a solid amount of value, so we'll be bumping Zac up out of the B tier and into A. Naafiri is going to be losing some damage on her R for this patch, as the base damage is going down by 25 at each rank, bonus AD ratio drops from 120 to 100%, and the pack mate damage is also being lowered. Considering Naafiri R is a point-and-click spell and the damage is guaranteed, along with the fact that you can reset the spell and get multiple instances of the damage off in a skirmish, we do think this should land quite significant. So we will be demoting Naafiri down the tier list, going from A into B tier. So for the jungle tier list in 26.15, the OP tier is going to be locked down by Nocturne, Nasus, and Wukong. Protoplasm nerfs last patch did hurt Rammus a bit, to the extent to where we do think Nocturne is slightly better now, so he's getting the move up and Rammus drops to S. Nasus was heavily overperforming prior to the Protoplasm nerfs, so even though he has become weaker due to them, his relative power remains high, so we still have him up in the OP tier. Sylas is one other jungler who's getting changed for this patch, but it's his Q damage at max rank that is going down and Q AP ratio being reduced slightly, so we don't think it will be enough to force a shift in Sylas's tier list placement in the jungle. You max your Q out last on Sylas jungle, so he won't be impacted by the nerf nearly as much as mid lane. And then with the lock nerfs coming through, we just don't see him being a viable jungler in the slightest. He's held a play rate around 3% recently, but his win rate is under 45%, so there's just no reason at all to be picking lock jungle in 26.15. And if you're looking to rank up as fast as possible in the jungle for Season 16, then our jungle clear course is going to help you out a ton. The course features optimal clears for all of the meta junglers with step-by-step instructions as to how you're going to clear the jungle. So if you want challenger level clear speeds, which will instantly increase your overall impact, then check out the course using the link in the top right hand corner of the screen or in the description below. So it wasn't too much of a surprise to us that the lock nerfs from last patch didn't do enough to drop him from a top tier standing in meta, so Riot is back with more nerfs in 26.15. Base health is going down from 655 to 620. Q nail damage is being lowered from 50 scaling to 82 to 40 scaling to 72. W movement speed will be going down from 40 scaling to 60% to 40% flat, and then W gray health base value drops from 40 scaling to 160 to 40 scaling to 120. So with these W nerfs going through, one thing you'll want to watch at the start of the patch is whether or not E max second becomes the better option now. Maxing W loses value with these nerfs, so there's a chance that E max second could be the better play moving forward. Overall though, Locke is becoming quite a bit weaker for this patch, especially due to the base health and Q nerfs. He's going to be losing a good chunk of laning power from those. The nerfs shouldn't kill Locke, but we don't think he'll be OP tier worthy, so we'll be bumping him down to S. Sylas is the second mid laner receiving nerfs for this patch, as his Q damage is dropping from 40 scaling to 140 to 40 scaling to 120, with the AP ratio going down from 45 to 40%. So this is more so a matchup specific nerf that shouldn't impact Sylas's power level by a significant margin. After all, Q max is only used in about 25% of Sylas games, and most players max the spell out last, so his overall win rate shouldn't see that big of a decline. With Rocket Belt nerfed last patch though, and with this direct nerf coming through, we do think it's enough to warrant a drop out of the S tier, so we'll be moving him into A. So if we have a look at the mid lane tier list for 26.15, with Locke dropping out of the OP tier, it's now going to be Vex and Fizz as the two OP picks. We covered the Naafiri nerf when going over jungle, but it will impact her as a mid laner as well. To what extent is tough to say, but we do think it's going to be pretty impactful, so we'll be dropping mid lane Naafiri down from S into A. Bastion Breaker buffs are going to be interesting to watch for mid lane in 26.15, because at the very start of the season, we were seeing it played quite often as a snowbally pickup on champs like Zed and Qiyana. Cost dropping by 200 and more damage on its passive is pretty significant, so definitely something to pay attention to if you main any AD assassin mid. Voltaic Cyclosword Rush into Bastion Breaker second is a core that we expect to be really strong on Zed for this coming patch. Naafiri and Qiyana can even look to run it as well. Other than that, it's going to be a pretty light patch for mid lane in 26.15, so the meta should remain quite similar to where it was in 26.14. The lone ADC who's receiving direct changes for this patch is Kai'Sa, as her passive on hit damage is going up. The base damage will be increased from 4 scaling to 24 plus 1 scaling to 6 per prior stack to now 4 scaling to 30 plus 1 scaling to 8 per prior stack. So more of a scaling buff to Kai'Sa, and we're going to leave her in the B tier for now, but there's a chance the change is enough to push her up into the A tier, but that's as far as we'd see her moving. Kai'Sa just really struggles in this current meta, as she plays very poorly into the mages that are being spammed a ton right now. So looking at the ADC tier list, we will continue to have Seraphine and Senna up in the OP tier. The Jack of all trades nerf is going through for this patch, so that will impact Senna slightly. However, we don't think it will be enough to drop her out of the OP tier. Bot lane meta is just super weird right now, because if you really want to climb, then it's just best to spam mages. It takes a lot less skill to impact games with mages than it does with traditional ADCs, because your early game is stronger and you can generally be more impactful without having to put yourself in danger. Ziggs, Hwei, Lux, Xerath are all champs that can sit back from a distance, spam out their spells from range, wave clear really well if their team falls behind, so it's just a lot easier to be useful without as much skill required. Most traditional ADCs lack the ability to clear waves from a distance and have to get up closer to be of impact, so you've got to be a lot more skilled to see results on them. on them. And then for support in 26.15, there's not a single support champion being adjusted, so the tier list should look nearly identical to last patch. Thresh will remain up in the OP tier as the most consistently powerful pickup right now. With so many mages being played bot, it has given more relative power over to the melee supports. Champs like Leona, Rel, Thresh, Blitz, and Naut are all rated A tier or above, as they synergize really well with pretty much any mage pick. Hitting a CC ability when you have a mage bot is way more rewarding than if you've got an ADC a lot of the time, because the instant follow-up burst damage that's coming out of a Ziggs, Brand, or Seraphine is going to be much stronger than the likes of Vayne, Zeri, or Yanara. Worth noting as well, which we haven't touched on during our previous tier list, is the rise of Camille support, so let's talk a little bit about that. Camille support has become super popular in pro play and can be quite strong when paired up with mages. The idea with Camille and mages is that at level 6, you get the lockdown with R, so it makes something like a Ziggs R much easier to hit and a super deadly combo. Camille support does take a bit more skill to play though than your typical melee engaged support, and if paired up with traditional ADCs, isn't the best, so despite her being picked at a higher rate lately, we do have her down in the B tier as an average support. As Camille, when you dive in with E, you're right into the thick of things, and if you miss the stun pre-6, then it's super punishing. Vice versa, if you're playing Thresh, Blitz, or Naut, and your hook doesn't connect, then it's not the end of the world, you just don't end up engaging. But with Camille, if you miss your engage tool, then you're sitting duck, so she is a lot more punishing if not played at a high level. Camille's support is more of a high elo skewed pick, and because our tier lists are more so based on what is best for Diamond and below, she isn't rated as highly as you may see her on pro or high elo centric tier lists. But while lists like these show you what to play, our brand new Season 16 Essentials courses for every role teach you how to win, each designed to walk you through every stage of the game from start to finish, from the exact trading and recall timers you need to win lane, to the mid-game macro decisions 99% of players get completely wrong, all the way to the team fighting tips and tricks challengers abuse to always deal the highest damage possible. Whether you're a top laner in the most unfavorable matchup possible, a mid laner having to deal with everybody in your lane 24/7, a jungler trying to balance ganking with farming, an ADC stuck trying to hard carry with a support who just exists to grief you, or a support that's struggling to carry games on your own, our Essentials courses are tailor-made to focus on the exact concepts that actually matter for climbing on your role in your elo. Check them out today, completely risk-free, using the link in the pinned comment or description below, as if you don't climb at least 5 divisions, you get every penny back. So there you have it, everyone. That's a complete look at the solo queue tier list for every role as we head into 26.15. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.